Are you satisfied and fulfilled in your relationship with God today? Have you learned to find your purpose, your joy, your rest in God? Or do you run after other things? Be honest, did it seem odd or out of place to have a Jesus cheer in church? Will you be more demonstrative during the Super Bowl this evening than you were during worship this morning? That's not right. That's not appropriate. If you knew God as He is, your passion would be uncontainable. Your worship would be loud. You would be unapologetic. How many of you know who Tom Odell is rooting for this evening? Stand up, Tom. Let them see you. Yeah. How many people this week are going to know that you're passionate about Jesus Christ? By how you talk, by how you behave, by where you go, by what you do. Great confessions satisfy the soul. You know the most powerful evangelistic tool in the world? When a Christian is satisfied with nothing but Jesus. Man, that has a powerful pull on people's lives. And it's rare to see that. It's rare to find that, even in the church. Somebody who says, I've made up my mind. You're all I want. Whatever it costs, whatever I lose, it's all right with me. I want Jesus, and I'm not afraid to tell people about it. I'm not ashamed to confess my passion and my devotion. And furthermore, I want everybody who knows me to know Jesus. I want everybody who crosses my path to come face to face with Christ. There aren't a lot of those folks around. Great confessions satisfy the soul. Thirdly, we learn from David's great confessions that great confessions transform one's fears. I love this part. David said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Now, it was also David who said in Psalm 56:3, he didn't say, I will fear no evil. He said, when I am afraid, I'll trust in you. I think that's probably the best interpretation of Psalm 23, when David said, when I'm walking through the valley of the shadow of death. I mean, this has a beautiful poetic ring to us, and we have attached sentiment to it. But originally, I think it was supposed to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. To walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Instead of thinking, oh, that's beautiful poetic language. I think it was meant to make you feel, oh my God, I would never want to be there. That's my worst nightmare, to be in the valley of the shadow of death, the grim reaper pressing down, gaining ground, about to snatch me up anywhere but there. David is saying, even there, you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. We'll explore this a little bit more next week in David's great confession as a warrior. Do you know where that great battle took place between David and Goliath? Did you know it was in a valley? Did you know that thousands would die in that valley? This is just my personal interpretation. I'm no David, but I have been to the valley of Elah. I've walked that valley where the Philistine army was on one side and the Israeli army was on the other. And for a month and a half, every morning and every night, oh my goodness, I'm preaching next week's sermon. You'll have to come back. But I think David was talking about the valley of Elah when he said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Great confessions transform one's fears. How many of you have ever been afraid? Raise your hand. The rest of you are liars. We all have fears. Sometimes we call them anxieties or concerns, matters for prayer. No, they're just flat out fears. We all have them. And the great confession of David starts by helping us face our fears. What fear is overshadowing you? Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, what's what a shadow is? You see my shadow there. If we could put on the screen, what would your fear shadow be? I don't know. Maybe for Kelly, maybe it's how's this delivery going to go this week for Shiloh? Or maybe for you it's, man, there are rumors of layoffs. I wonder if I'm going to have a job next month. Or maybe it's that fear of, am I going to be accepted by my peers at school? Am I going to be bullied? Am I going to be made fun of? Am I going to be ostracized? Maybe your fear is, how are my kids going to turn out? Or maybe you've recently received word of health concerns and you wonder, I've got an appointment to interpret this scan. I wonder what it's going to tell me. Face your fears. That's what David is saying. There's specificity here. That's why I think it was the valley of Elah. He wasn't being poetic. He was naming his fears. He was naming that overarching thing that he thought might be too much for him. What is that for you? Face your fears. Don't deny them. Don't try to hide them. Name them. Bring them out to God. Because only then can you transform your fears. And then notice how it happens for David. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, he says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Again, this is beautiful poetic language that we're oftentimes so familiar with, we never stop to think about, what in the world does that mean? When's the last time you ate in front of your enemy? Does that sound poetic to you? I mean, somebody that hates you, somebody that's out to get you, and that has tracked you down and got right in front of you. When's the last time you said, hold that thought just a moment, and you sat down to a great spread? That's what David said. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. This is the most astounding confession perhaps in the Bible, that it is possible, if you trust God, that you can feast on your fears. That's what he's saying. The thing that you're afraid of, you could trust God and it would turn into a meal for you that would nourish you and strengthen you and satisfy that hunger you have in your soul.